So coming up in the scene in the Southern California music scene, what's that like? Like in that area, what like is there a lot of opportunity for a young artist?
It was amazing. Obviously, nothing worked out there, but
Hmm.
but I had a lot of really cool opportunities. I opened for Stevie Wonder when I was like 17. I got to play for presidents. I got to just do a lot of cool, play for radio stations, and Ed McMahon saw me play at a radio station. Like just cool, random stuff that when you live that in that vicinity to LA, you just have cool opportunities. I had signed a development deal when I was a teenager. Ended up as soon as I turned 18, they were like, "Oh, you're fat and just a normal girl, so we're not gonna assign you." And that kind of, that stuff happens in Hollywood too,
Hmm.
especially in the early 2000s when they were calling Jessica Simpson
Yeah.
fat.
Oh man, I mean, if one thing has gotten better somewhat in the world, it's that, right? Like I feel like age and appearance and things like that aren't really overshadowing talent quite as much as it used to, right?
I'm so happy for that, and I tell everyone in the younger generation take advantage of that because that was not a thing.
Yeah, I think that's the
When
social media part of it, right? Like because I mean, as an artist, you don't necessarily need somebody behind you to get seen. You just need a viral moment or something on TikTok or wherever. And I mean, you're going to get that traffic anyway, regardless of what you look like or how old you are. I like, look, you go on TikTok and there's freaking viral like sensations that are in their 90s, you know?
I I love it so much,
Me
and
too.
like for me, I am definitely expired to the music industry. And
Which is
every meeting that I
ridiculous.
have,
Yeah.
they're like, "Yeah, that doesn't your age concern you?" I'm like, "No, because I don't have gatekeepers telling me it.
Hmm.
But I go straight to my audience, and my audience is not people that want to hear a 19-year-old teeny bopper telling them about life because those people haven't experienced life.
Yeah. Just go look
I
at the
am
content. Look at the content, and you tell me you don't gravitate to the content, regardless of what the person looks like or how old they are. Like,
Yes,
you
like
know,
I've actually lived a life. I've lived
yes,
10 lives at this point.
yeah,
And so when I say something, it's because it's happened to me,
mm-hmm.
not because I'm making up some story. And I
Yeah,
think that that is what has completely changed in the music industry is it's not just you get two 80-year-old dudes writing a song for a 19-year-old girl and it doesn't feel authentic.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's hard for that 19-year-old girl to connect to that song, just because the machine wants her to connect to that song. It doesn't work that way,
Exactly.
to be completely honest with people, it didn't work that way when it was working that way.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean. But yeah, and look, I talk to a lot of those 80-year-old dudes too. So believe
Yeah.
me, I've had both sides on this show. So yeah, I mean, one of the things that I love is like you're making a name for yourself in LA. You're doing well out there. You're winning awards, right? You're opening for the Stevie Wonders and all of that. But you do make the decision at some point, this rocker girl, might I add, to go to Nashville. So what's behind the reason for that?
I was already coming out to Nashville like 3 or 4 times a year, and at that time, I there wasn't the money in music that there is now, and I just didn't have the money to keep. It was more expensive to visit Nashville than to live in Nashville, and I had family back home, so I could always go home and stay as long as I needed to, and then come out here. When I moved to Nashville, when I was like visiting Nashville, it'd be like between 500 and a grand, and for a 25-year-old
Yeah.
that's just playing music for a living, that is way too much to come out here. Because I was writing with people out here and like just trying to play the whiskey jams and do the things that you needed to do back in 2015, 2016. And then in 2016, I was finally like, okay, I'm going to move here. When I moved here, my rent was $400 a month.
Wow.
And you will never find that now.
Yeah.
But it was so much cheaper to live here and do the Nashville thing. And I really wanted to like hone in on writing. Now, like I kind of lightly mentioned earlier, I ended up mostly partying and drinking and playing in a cover band for the first 5 years. But you got to learn those
Sure.
lessons.
Yeah, you have to grow too, and you're growing while that's happening too, I imagine.
Yes.
I mean, LA is a big mecca for music too. So, was there any kind of tug of war in your between your creativeness between LA and Nashville? Because even you said, even though you wore boots, you really weren't country. You were a rocker chick. I would imagine LA would be better for that rocker chick, right?
It was just there was no country scene out there when I was there. I was like the big fish in the country scene and
Yeah,
playing for every band opening up out there and whatever. And I kind of felt like I'd reached the pinnacle. Now, right around that time, country started getting cool,
yeah,
and I don't know what would have happened if I would have stayed, and I'll never know. So it's kind of like hindsight is 2020. I don't know if staying would have been a better idea, but at the time, it made more sense for me to live here because for like mainly financial reasons. I could work on Broadway and pay almost nothing for rent and still be chasing my, whatever. But in LA, I will say I was working harder on my original
yeah.
project. But I had just gotten out of a really bad deal. And I was trying to leave my boyfriend at the time. And the only way that I felt like I could escape all of that was just to leave.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like you had all these influences that weren't country growing up. And at some point in time, country music is kind of winning that tug of war. So how and when did that happen?
When I was like 19, 20, I had kind of given in to the fact that I was country. And a friend introduced me to a band called the Knitters, which is they are like very much one of the bands that coined the alternative, them and Nico Case. And I found those two bands kind of around the same time. And I was like, oh, I love this. And the Knitters is a really obscure band because they were actually the band X, like the 80s punk band,
Hmm.
had like a side project. And it was this band, the Knitters.
Oh, really?
And
Nice.
yes, and they were like a traditional country, like almost cosplay like band.
Okay.
And they did covers of like George Jones songs and like they had a couple original country songs, but it was really a lot of classic covers. And it introduced me to country music that I didn't really know. Because when I was growing up, like I said, when I was really young, like a kid, like elementary school, it was the Shanias and the Tim McGraws and whatever. And to me, that was just like, that's whatever. But I had never listened to Dolly Parton. I had never listened to Waylon Jennings. I had never listened to Johnny Cash. Now I knew who all these people were because we all know who they are,
Right.
but I had never listened to them. And so I went and listened to that music and I was like, oh, I do like this. But when I was like a teenager and able to like find my own country music, it was Jason Aldean, it was Luke Bryan, it was Florida Georgia Line, and I was just like, that's not me for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what is me, but that's not me. And then when I was 19, I heard Eric Church for the first time, and for modern country, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is different. This is like, and he was real, and he was, the Outsiders, and he was, and while like it is still pop country, like it didn't feel like pop
Yeah.
country, and like Smoke a Little Smoke was exactly what I was like, okay, now I'm 100% sold after like doing a little homework for a couple years on classic country and where all these people, came from. And then like Dwight Yoakam is California and Merle Haggard is California.
Hmm.
And so I leaned really hard into the California country thing for a few years before finally deciding to move to Nashville.